Steel behind black water ahead. Moon on the spears, fear in the breath. Dust like thunder rolling our name. Why did we leave old ghosts, same chain?
You ever have a moment where you did the right thing? You followed the prompting, you obeyed the call, you stepped out in faith. It seemed like things immediately got worse. Yeah, so in this case, you left Egypt, you packed your bags, you walked out the door in the middle of the night with unleavened bread and a promise. And now you're standing on a beach with nowhere to go, and the most powerful army in the ancient world is bearing down on you. That is Exodus 14. And what happens next is one of the single most referenced events in all of Israelite history. So welcome to Come Listen With Me. I'm Ricky Black, aka Elder Eleazar, and this is our Monday, April 13th reading to kick off week 16 of our ongoing 2026 Come Follow Me study of the Old Testament. So today we're going to be reading Exodus chapter 14. It's going to be all 31 verses, and this is the crossing of the Red Sea. And we're going to read every verse of it together right here and teach into it as we go. So, all right, so we have the whole chapter to read. It's a lot to unpack, and some things I think are going to hit differently than you expect. It's great. So let's come listen together. Now, since we don't want to just read passively and to check the boxes, we want to read with intention. Let us go ahead and have a couple of questions in mind to help focus our reading and our minds as we go through our scriptures today, right? So the first question we want to keep in mind is, what does it mean that God told Moses to stop crying out and instead to go forward, right? And kind of think about like when his faith required action from you rather than waiting, right? So pay attention to that as we go through. And also, the pillar of cloud served as both light and darkness depending on which side of it you stood. So as we go and we think about this as we read, just think about where in your life has God's presence felt like shelter. Okay. And with those in mind, let's jump right on in. So again, we're going to be in the second book of Moses called Exodus chapter 14. And right here in the section heading, Israel goes out to Egypt. Israel passes through the Red Sea on dry ground, and the Lord overthrows the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon, before it shall be ye encamped by the sea. So, it's the very first thing God does right out the gate is he tells Moses to do something that makes no tactical sense. He says, go turn around and go back towards the sea. Camp in this position that is militarily indefensible. It's a terrible place to camp, right? It's between the desert and the water. And there's no escape routes here. And God knows that, right? He's doing this on purpose. Okay, continue in verses 3 and 4 now. And Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land. The wilderness hath shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them. And I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, that Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. Right. So God is not just delivering Israel. He's making a statement to Egypt again, right? And the phrase is that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. Like maybe they didn't know it already from the 10 plagues, but he's going to do it again, right? We heard this repeatedly through the plagues, but this is going to be the final demonstration. So Pharaoh thinks Israel is trapped, and God is the one who put them there. And there is a pattern here worth noticing, right? God sometimes leads his people into positions that look like failures so that the deliverance, when it comes, cannot be credited to anything else but him. All right. So let's go on to verses 5 and 7 now. And it was told the king of Egypt that people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 700 chariots, and all them chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. All right, correction, we're going to 7 there. But yeah, he's taking 600 chariots. And these are not foot soldiers, right? This is Egypt's elite mobile strike force, right? These are the special forces. The chariot corps was the most feared military technology in the ancient Near East, right? Against a crowd of unarmed former slaves carrying children and livestock, there's no contest. It doesn't matter that it's 1.5 million to 2 million of them. It's a massacre that is waiting to happen. It's like sending in a whole like fleet of tanks to just go and run through a population of nomads. So it's not going to end well. All right. Let's do verses 8 and 9 now. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with a high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses, and the chariots of Pharaoh, and his horsemen, and his army. They overtook the encamping by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-zephon. So they went out with an high hand. Now, what that means is with confidence, right? With defiance, with a posture of free people. Think about just lifting up the hand in defiance of things. That's what they're meaning by the high hand. But now the chariots are closing in, and the confidence, that's about to be tested, right? We're going to see how much they really kind of trust things. Right, continue on in verses 10 through 12. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid, and the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is it not the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. And that's something it's kind of darkly comical about, verse 11, because there were no graves in Egypt, right? So Egypt was famous for its tombs. And so this sarcasm comes really thick here, but underneath the sarcasm is, some genuine terror and anxiety, right? These people, they can see the dust cloud from Pharaoh's chariots, and they could hear the horse hooves beating on the ground. So their children are behind them, and the sea is in front of them, and they are furious at Moses for bringing him here. And honestly, can you kind of blame him in the moment? Yes, 3 days ago they watched God kill the firstborn of Egypt, and then they walked out under a pillar of fire, and now it looks like it might have all been for nothing. This is that gap between deliverance and trust. God got them out, and they have not yet learned to believe he will keep them out. And if you listen now to what Moses says, this is one of the great lines in all of Scripture. That's where we pick up here in verses 13 and 14. And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Stand still. Now the Hebrew word here is hit yatzfu, right? And it doesn't mean freeze. It doesn't mean do nothing, right? But it can mean to take your appointed position, stand firm. Think of a soldier at his post, or a priest presiding at his station in the temple. So it's not a sort of passive resignation. There's something active, deliberate, and really covenant positioning. So plant your feet, face the sea, and watch God work. And then he says, the Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Now, you do not have to win this battle. You don't have to figure this out. That's what he's telling him, right? He says, your job right now is just to stand where God puts you and let him do what only he can do. Witness his power and his authority. Okay, so let's go on to 15 and 16 now. And the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. So this is the part we all know, and it's remarkable, right? Moses just told the people to stand still, and God says, all right, now go forward. And there's no contradiction here, right? The standing still was a faith posture. There was still some sort of, action or activity that was there, even though there wasn't necessarily movement. But then the going forward, there's faith action there. You stand still long enough to let fear pass, and then you move. And you don't wait for the sea to open before you. You start walking, and then the sea opens. Now, President Jeffrey R. Holland, he used this exact passage to teach about the spirit of revelation. He said the Red Sea did not part all at once with a clear path to the other side. It opened step by step, and that is how revelation works. You walk forward, the path clears as you go. Another way of saying that might be line upon line, precept upon precept. It can be hard when we want to know everything that's planned for us, when we want to know all the details and all the information. But really, true faith is just doing what the Lord commands, a step at a time, and waiting for him to open the path before you. Okay. Let's go into 17 and 18 now. And behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. And I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon all his hosts, and upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. So God's not ambushing the Egyptians. He is telling Moses in advance, really exactly what's going to happen here. So the Egyptians will follow you into the sea, and then the sea will close on them, right? So there's a sort of choreography that's going into here, and there's a reassurance, from the Lord, like, don't worry, I have a plan. All right. So let's continue on now in verses 19 and 20. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that one came not near the other all night. So the pillar of cloud and fire, which had been leading Israel from the front, it now moves into its the rear position, right? So it's positioned itself between Egypt and Israel. And here's the part that is kind of really interesting, right? To Egypt, it was darkness, but to Israel, it was light. It's the same presence of God, the same pillar. So darkness on one side, light on the other. Now, the JST adds a clarifying detail here, right? It says that it was a cloud and darkness. So to the Egyptians, but gave light by night to Israel. So the same God who is your shelter can be impenetrable to you to the things pursuing you, right? His presence does not change. Your positive, relative to him your position relative to him determines what you experience. So it is kind of interesting to think that though those who are kind of against God might look at his light and glory and look at it as a sort of darkness to them. They just can't see the light. Okay, continue on verses 21 through 22. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on the right hand and on their left. So that's kind of something interesting, right? It didn't happen super quick. This was all night. And the wind blows all night before the path is clear. So again, deliverance doesn't always come instantly. Sometimes it comes through a long night with a lot of howling wind. But when the morning comes, the ground is dry, not muddy or damp, just dry, and the water stands in walls on either side. So the text is emphatic about this, like walls. So this is not a shallow marsh. It's that they're going through, right? This is an act of God that leaves no room for a naturalistic explanation. And Paul, he reads this moment in 1 Corinthians 10 as a baptism, right? The cloud overhead, the water on both sides, the people passing through from one identity into another, right? Slaves walked into the sea, into the water. A covenant nation walked out the other side. All right. So now we're going to get to Egypt's destruction here, verses 23 to 25. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watched the Lord looked upon the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, and they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. So literally, the chariot wheels, they just come off. Egypt's greatest technology, right? The advantage they have is completely neutralized. And then comes the line that the Egyptians themselves speak. They said, the Lord fighteth for them. So even the enemy recognizes what is happening. Like, this is not Moses. This is not a strategy, right? This is divine intervention on a scale that cannot be denied. And this is something that I always find fascinating, because when you read through scriptures, particularly when we're dealing with other nations, often other nations do recognize the power and authority of Yahweh, right? Of Jehovah. And doing so even in the face of their own gods. And it's not just some sort of, well, like, they have their gods and we have our gods. They really do see him as this sort of like bigger authority. Even when we get into the Babylonian exile with Nebuchadnezzar, which we'll study, much later this year. But we have, certain historical documents that showed that he was writing prayers to the Israelite God, because he just knew how powerful God really was, and he always wanted to be on his good side just in case. So yeah, even the enemy is constantly aware of God's power and his authority. All right, so let's go ahead and continue 26 through 28. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned, and covered the chariots, and the horsemen, and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. Not one. The totality of Egypt's pursuit force is completely destroyed, absolutely devastated. So the empire that held Israel for 4 centuries, they have nothing left to pursue them with. Like, the threat is not just diminished, it's like it's completely eliminated. Okay. Now let's move on to the final bit here, verses 29 through 31. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on the right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day. Now the Hebrew word for saved here is a form of yasha. It's the same root that gives us the name Yeshua, Jesus, salvation. It's the same word that Moses used in verse 13 when he told them, see the salvation of the Lord. So what they were told to look for, they have now seen, and it bears the name of Christ embedded in the language itself. In verse 31, they believed the Lord and his servant Moses. So yeah, faith did not come before the crossing. Faith came because of what they witnessed. And, sometimes that's what people need. But sometimes we need to have the faith to just move forward so we can see these things. And God, though, he didn't wait for Israel to believe, right, before he acted. He acted, and their belief followed. So grace precedes faith here. God moves first. And there's a little bit of a dance here that we can kind of see, right? God will always move in advance for us. But we need to trust in him to also move first when he asks us to act. And in doing so, we create this amazing relationship of action, of activity, of motion between the two of us, of him going out ahead of us, but us acting in faith before we see any of the fruits of it. And the end result is that our faith will be affirmed. God presents these things so that we will know he is the Lord. And there's something beautiful and meaningful in understanding that. So here's what I want you to think on today. So is that if there's a sea in front of you right now, something that looks impassable, something in your personal life, a calling that feels too heavy, or a decision that has no clear path forward, just remember, God did not part the sea before Israel got to the water's edge. He parted it when they were standing at the shore with nowhere else to go. And he did not part it all at once. The wind blew all night. The path opened as they walked. And if you're in that place right now, just stand still long enough to let the fear pass. Then go forward. Your job is not to split the sea. Your job is to walk into it. So drop a comment below. Tell me what your Red Sea is right now. You don't have to give any of the details, but even one word is enough. But let the community carry it with you, right? Let's discuss these things. Tell us about the time where your act of stepping forward into the water out of faith, showed you these miracles that when you came out the other side, there was no doubt that it was the Lord who had delivered you from your scenario. We'll all grow stronger in our faith and our testimonies and closer to the Lord for us. So please, let's keep this going as a community. That's all for today. So tomorrow, day 2, we're going to pick up at the Song of the Sea in Exodus 15. And after everything we just read today, Israel stands on the other side and they celebrate with music. Now, this is actually one of the oldest poems in the Bible, and it's really extraordinary. You don't want to miss it. So much cool stuff to go over. And if you are doing the deep dive this week, right, the article paired with today's reading, it explores that whole baptismal typology of the crossing, how Paul, the Book of Mormon, and the Restoration all read Exodus 14 as a covenant passage through water into new identity. Now, the link's down in the description, so go catch it and read it. It's on my Substack right now. And as always, I appreciate you all, and thank you for choosing to spend some of your precious time to come listen with me.
Ah.